Hello, all you kings, queens, and those in between, and welcome to episode 6 of the Busted Limes podcast. I am your host, Paresh Maharaj, and before we get to the episode proper, we would be remiss if we did not address the current state of affairs in America. We here at Busted Limes fully support the Black Lives Matter movement, and we stand in solidarity with everyone in the United States and around the world in protesting systemic racism and police brutality against black people. It is more important now, more than ever, to listen to and lift up black voices, and this cannot be just a momentary show of support. This is a prolonged and dedicated movement that must continue if we are ever going to see true change in this country. Even when the media cycle inevitably moves on to other issues, we have to keep fighting. Black Lives Matter is not a trend. It is a fundamental truth that we need to make a reality in this country and in the world. If you're not sure how to help, we're putting several links in the description of this episode. Take a look at them, educate yourself on the issues, and try to help in whatever way you're comfortable with. Thank you. And now, let's talk about some dumb superhero movies. Alright, testing, are we good? Looks like we're picking it up.
Is it picking me up? Okay, it looks like we're good. I really don't want to have to do another re-record on this.
Oh,
because
God,
if I have
no.
to talk about Thor the Dark World more than we're going to today, I will jump out of a third-story window.
Oh, yeah, valid reaction. So, Anyway, on to phase 2.
Phase 2, yep. After blowing everybody away with Avengers and a couple other movies in phase 1, Marvel kept the train going with phase 2 to what I'll admit were mixed reactions at the time. And of course, at this point, I was a little bit older as these movies were coming out, so I remember it better, but it's really interesting to see how the MCU is this huge phenomenon now. But really, up until beginning of phase 3, their movies were very hit or miss.
Oh, God, yeah, I think this phase really is the biggest exemplification of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it's a good thing that it starts off with Ironman 3, because this is probably the one this phase we're going to disagree on the most.
Oh, God, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so I said initially, and before we get too into this, I will just quickly review what our criteria are. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're judging it on the plot, the action, dialogue, and character interaction, whether the movie works as a standalone, and how well it pushes the overarching plot of the MCU, and, are there how many big, iconic moments, etc., how we felt watching theaters for the first time. And I'd said last episode that we're not really going to use backstage stuff as, criteria.
Right.
And we still aren't, but I still want to bring it up a few times because sometimes it does help to understand why parts of the movie are the way they are.
Yeah.
So going into Iron Man 3, it's important to understand that RDJ's contract was expiring in this movie. This was the last movie in his contract. And they didn't actually know if they would be able to get him back or how many movies they would be able to get him back for. So really, going into this movie at the time, a lot of people assumed that this was going to be the end of Iron Man's story.
A sentiment that did not age well.
No, for several reasons. So, yeah, well, to put it this way, this is probably the only time I'd rewatch this movie all the way through.
Really?
Well, I saw it in theaters, and I think I saw it once or twice, on cable or something, but yeah, this is the first time I really sat down and intentionally rewatched it.
Right.
Yeah.
The first time I saw it was back in college. We used to have a theater. It was free admission for students, so I just went in there when they were showing it. And that was my first time seeing it.
I mean, I saw it as a kid because it was a summer blockbuster. What else are you going to do? Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, this movie finds us with Tony Stark essentially dealing with the personal fallout of Avengers, which really sets up one of the longest running plot threads in the MCU, which is Tony Stark having severe PTSD as a result of the Battle of New York, which is mostly handled well. Like, the best thing I can say about it is that his anxiety attacks and the way that they happen are very realistic and hit close to home. I just wish it wasn't a punchline as often as it was, which we'll get to as we get to that part of the movie.
Right, valid, yeah.
Yeah, so I think the one thing about this movie is that, what really keeps it watchable is the humor. Like, it still has that standard MCU sense of humor.
Oh, yeah.
And, Tony Stark is probably the best character at leveraging that. Like, the opening, suit-up scene with him trying to get the Mark 42 to work.
Yeah.
It's, such a complete departure from the previous suit-up scenes, but in a way that's so Tony Stark. I think it helps set the tone properly.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I appreciate it in the very opening scene in the party in Switzerland with that cameo with Yinsen.
Yeah, I know, right? Because that apparently means that he knew Yinsen before the cave incident. Which...
But in the cave incident, Yinsen does mention, we met at a party in Bern, but you probably don't remember. You were too drunk.
Oh,
so this was a direct callback to that.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And, well, you know what? If we're going to talk Iron Man 3, you want to just go ahead and just address the elephant in the room?
Which one? This is a fucking zoo.
Jeez. Because I think the most divisive thing about the movie was, at the time at least, it was released, was the Mandalorian twist.
The Mandarin.
Mandarin
twist.
Oh, God, I actually have it in my notes, and I'm actually accidentally going to call him Mandalorian at least a couple times here.
Well, at least you know yourself. Yeah. So, here's the thing with the Mandarin twist, and I did write a lot about it. I mean, plain and simple, it's whitewashing. They took Middle Eastern Indian character, whatever he was supposed to be in the comics. Honestly, in the comics, first of all, it's a shitty stereotype. I'm not going to defend that. But, I mean, in the movies, they set him up to be a Middle Eastern aesthetic type terrorist and then swap him out at the last minute with a white dude with dragon tattoos. And I'm not going to defend that. But the thing is, with what they... And this is kind of representative of an issue I have with this movie as a whole. The movie consistently gets frustratingly close to making a point and then chickens out at the last second. Like, the thing is, the whole thing with the Mandalorian essentially just being a creation of a white guy, and, the whole thing is a movie creating its own demons, with the way, and it's not a secret that the MCU has a weird relationship with the U.S. military.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and it's like, the movie gets so close to making so many points about the U.S. essentially manufacturing the war on terrorism and how so many terrorist attacks were literally caused by us.
Yeah.
But it's like, they literally even call out the fact that AIM used military contracts to create extremists as a bad thing. I think it's so close to making these points, but they just kind of leave those threads hanging because they don't actually want to say anything. That's the biggest thing with these movies. I know superhero movies don't need to say anything, but it's like, don't do the setup if you're not going to follow through. And that's a frustrating thing with the Mandarin. Fuck you. It could have worked, and it didn't because they were cowards about it.
Because they were cowards. Yeah.
And so if the other thing with this movie that I think is really divisive about it is, well, first of all, the thing with this movie, like I said, is that this was initially going to be Tony Stark's ending. And of course it wasn't, because they still kept making movies with him in it. So the movie ends with him blowing up all of his suits.
Yeah. And I think we both have, I think this is one thing we do agree on, that this would have been a better ending for Tony's arc than
Endgame. I like the better ending but the problem is, because they gave him such a good ending in this, that, it kind of feels bastardized by the fact that he's still making suits and working in movies after this.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no... The problem with them emphasizing that everything in these movies is connected is there's no way to reconcile the end of this movie with anything that happens after.
Anything that happens after. And and that's what I have here. That's my feelings on it, right, as it is. It's like, as much as I love this movie standalone, it's not a standalone movie. It's incongruous with the rest of the series, the franchise. Right. Yeah.
And I mean, I'll cover the last thing about this movie that I really explicitly don't like before I talk about the parts that I do like.
Okay.
Just because it,
Yeah. Exactly.
So the part I don't like, I didn't like the little kid. I didn't like
Really?
It. Okay, here's the thing. I don't like the trend of movies having unnecessary annoying kid sidekicks to try and appeal to the kids. It's a superhero movie. It already appeals to kids.
Okay. Fair.
And then the other thing is, it's like, I really feel like in the writer's room, the producer's like, okay, we need to keep having Tony have anxiety and PTSD attacks, but we can't be too serious about it. Where there's just this really insensitive kid that just keeps accidentally triggering his anxiety because no fucking idea what's going on. Brilliant. Like, and maybe I'm taking this too personally because I actually have anxiety attacks in real life.
Right.
But like, that just pissed me off so much, all of those scenes. Mr. Stark, are you having anxiety attacks because I keep asking you about a really traumatic thing because I'm a little kid and don't understand this shit and really shouldn't be in this movie in the first place? It's like, what purpose does that kid serve in this movie? What purpose does he serve?
Just, he's like his surveillance guy. He's the reason they needed a reason to have the suit, to have his suit at the end. I think that's really it, though.
Yeah, it's stupid.
Yeah, he didn't have to be a little kid, but honestly, I kind of enjoyed the.
I think so. Here's why I think this kid is in this movie. I think they wanted Tony to have kind of like some kind of surrogate father relationship with some little kid. But they got rid of the kid when they realized they could just do that with Spider-Man.
With Spider-Man, yeah.
Like, I honestly think that kid would have come back in Civil War in a similar role if they hadn't been able to get Peter Parker. I have no basis for that speculation, but that makes sense to me.
It does, yeah. And it's funny because I thought the part that you said you weren't going to like was something that I didn't like about the movie, was the fact that Pepper survives the whole superpower selection thingy at the end, and then she gets cured off screen.
No, that was sloppy screenwriting. But I mean, like, if we talk about the things I don't like about this movie, we'll be here all day.
Right,
so, like,
right. Okay.
There was something I liked about this movie. Hang on, let me check my notes.
Well, while you're doing that,
so the part that I liked, two things I liked. First of all, the extremist guys. It was so Aldrich Killian, the white dude who ends up being the Mandarin.
Mm-hmm.
He's essentially just the third Iron Man movie in a row where the villain is just some kind of evil version of Tony Stark.
Tony Stark, yeah.
But I like the extremist villains because, you know, it was creative. They could get creative with the fight scenes and they weren't just more robots and mindless drones to fight. I feel like they could have, you know, tried to actually say something about the fact that all these villains are veterans who are chewed up and spit out and left with this as their only course of action. But, you know, fuck making a statement, right?
Yeah, or even if it is a statement, it's not they don't like give enough focus to it.
Yeah, no. Yeah. But I like the scene where, you know, his suit's not working and he has to like build stuff out of a bunch of stuff from a hardware store. And it's like, I like that he spends so much of the movie as just Tony Stark, because I think both audiences and characters have forgotten that Tony Stark is cool in spite of the suit. He's like, the whole point of Tony Stark is that, you know, his power is his intellect and frankly his money. You take away the suit, he's still
genius, cool, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Exactly, and audiences need to be reminded that wasn't just a cheesy one-liner.
Right. Oh, and one thing that really boosted this movie for me was that this was a movie that was directed by Shane Black. Yeah, and Shane Black's voice actually they actually let it come through in this movie because one of his staples is that, and I remember in the last episode we mentioned Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. There's this one scene in the movie where they do the classic Russian roulette interrogation scene, and you know how that scene mostly goes. It's they wait until the last chamber in order to before there's a bullet in it. Yeah, but in a Shane Black movie, the bullet is in the first chamber and you accidentally end up killing the guy you're interrogating. Oh, so that's nice. the humor through absurdity, through what you don't expect. And so, and that comes up twice in this movie, where the first part where Tony's shackled up in the basement and
it takes him forever to get the suit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then even another slightly more subtle example was in the final battle where he's summoning his suit towards him and the suit just trips over that piece of bridge that was
that was great.
I was like, yes, they got Shane Black they let Shane Black shine here.
Yeah. And I mean, if I'm going to talk about things I liked, I should point out that the character writing at least was on point. Like the relationship and dynamics between all of Pepper and Tony and Happy and Rhodey was all on point. Like their personalities in this movie, I will say, is pretty much how most fans remember them.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, it really holds. That's at least one part that holds up throughout as like a piece of the Marvel franchise. But because these are the defining characters or characteristics and traits that the characters exhibit throughout the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, it works perfectly well as a standalone film, but that's a good and a bad thing. And you know, as far as pushing the movie along, I mean, it introduces Tony's PTSD, like I said, which is literally his motivating factor in every movie following this. But, you know, the ending kind of fucks that up.
Yeah, and that's the frustrating thing. Everything is, like, even as much as I like this movie, just the ending it's inconsequential. Yeah. And like,
as far as, like, memorable stuff, I think the only real memorable scenes are the Air Force One rescue and the house party protocol, but even those were very heavily featured in the trailers, so it's like the movie essentially has nothing to offer other than what was already in the trailers.
Valid. So
anything else you want to add before we get to the rating?
Oh, well, just one little piece of trivia is like, this is actually the first instance of the patented MCU civilian disguise. With the hood.
Shit, you're right.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't even catch that. That's brilliant.
This is the first instance where Tony is buying the materials.
Yeah, and he has the
this is the first instance of that. Huh. But no, it's cool. But and also, if I could just say one nice thing about the Mandarin twist is that at least I liked it at the time because plain and simple, the villain, what it turns out was just a dumb brown guy, and the real villain was the white billionaire. Yeah,
that's fair.
But that's about. So
I know. So my rating, I gave it bronze. Whereas I mean, on its own, it's a run-of-the-hill superhero movie that doesn't do anything particularly well and comes frustratingly close to making a point several times, then just doesn't. So, like, that counts against it really heavily for me.
Okay, yeah, this is going to be the one that we disagree on the most, because I actually put it in gold tier. Because
I don't know you anymore. I don't know you anymore. This is a solo podcast now. Fuck you.
Okay. But yeah, I still think that it's, for me anyways, that its strength as a standalone movie is enough for me to forgive anything. Like, yeah, inconsequential ending, he still makes more suits, but I like the Mandalorian twist, and yeah, and let's not forget the end credit scene that actually revealed that he was talking with Bruce the whole time, so that's like accidental building of their relationship as well.
I bet you think Forrest Gump deserved Best Picture too.
Hey.
No, that end credit scene holds a very near and dear place in my heart, because when I went to see this movie with a friend that summer, I literally had to hold him back in the seat because he wanted to leave before the credits were done. And I was like, no, we go all the way with this shit. No. Like, even early on, I knew how this shit worked. Also, I remember being really fucking confused because the movie takes place during Christmas, but it was a summer release.
Oh yeah, this is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, but it's Shane Black, so that's just kind of his thing.
Oh yeah, it really is. All right.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Do we have to talk about it?
Yeah.
Bronze, moving on. Okay,
no, don't you dare. No. No. I didn't sit through 2 fucking hours of literal unwatchable bullshit for you to just bronze and move on this shit, okay? I will never get those hours of my life back, and neither will our listeners. We're talking about this.
Okay, so, Tom Hiddleston is good?
If he's the bad guy, why is he the only person trying to save this fucking movie? Okay, so I have to put my fucking drink down for this.
Okay, right. Yeah, let's go.
So, here's the thing with this movie. It literally has no redeeming qualities. Most movies that I dislike, I try to set aside apart to talk about the things I like about it. And I will do that for this, but there's really only one thing to talk about. So I'm going to tear this movie's asshole apart for as long as Paresh can hold this mic up without his arm getting tired. And then we will move on.
All right, go right ahead.
All right, so the movie opens up with yet another painfully horrible attempt at trying to be Lord of the Rings, which Marvel eventually figured out wouldn't work, where we find that Thor's grandfather, Bor, who, fun comic trivia, is named after the only adjective that can describe this fucking movie. He has to fight the Dark Elves from the Dark World, who want to bring back the darkness, whatever the fuck that means. Which is my first issue with this movie, is that there are no real villains. You have these fucking Teletubby-looking dipshits and Space Legolas to literally have nothing explained about them other than that they're evil and dark. The screenwriters literally think that adding dark in front of everything just makes it evil. Like, it's stupid. It's just stupid. I don't have a clever joke for that. You can't just put dark in front of something and automatically make it considered evil. You know what's evil? The fact that I made myself rewatch this fucking movie. Okay, anyway, after defeating the Dark Elves, who are trying to use a super weapon called the Aether to destroy reality or some shit, Bor decides, we cannot destroy it. We must hide it away so it can never be found. I counted. It is literally found 15 minutes later in the movie. I counted. Anyway, the movie takes us back to Asgard, where Thor and the Warriors 3, comic trivia, their name is a clever reference to the fact that there are 4 of them. They find that apparently everything's gone to shit since Loki's plan in the first Thor actually had some consequences. Without the Bifrost, Asgard couldn't colonize the rest of the world, so Thor had to go fix that because he's a good guy. Right. You know how this works.
Yeah.
Yeah, and basically everybody's celebrating, but Thor's sad because he's not with Natalie Portman, who's on Earth being miserable. Fun fact, Jane Foster's name is a reference to the fact that she spends this whole movie acting with all the enthusiasm of someone whose parents just died in front of her. Anyway, that's my first big issue with this movie. Yeah, we just got to my first big issue with this movie.
The fact that Jane Foster's got reduced to a plot device?
Yes, but that was also an issue in the first Thor, and so that's just an overall screenwriting issue.
But now she's literally treated as a container for the freaking ether.
Yes, but my biggest issue is all the Earth scenes. Aside from Jane Foster and Eric's... First of all, none of the humor in this movie works at all. None. This is probably the only Marvel movie where I can honestly say I don't think a single joke lands. Well, there are some that do.
Loki cap?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
Anyway, my problem is that my biggest issue with the first Thor movie was that it didn't really do enough to establish Asgard. This was the perfect movie to do that, and they still had so many useless cutaway scenes to the unfunny comic relief characters on Earth that just slow pacing down and aren't funny and don't matter. You also have... my brain is turning off and I can't talk about this. Edit this to the part where I start making sense.
Take your time.
The other issue with this movie, aside from the fact that, the main characters aren't funny, is that, like I said, there's no real motivation to the villain, so it feels like there's never really any stakes. Like, what is the darkness? What is the dark world? What was the world like before any of this backstory shit happened?
What is lost if the villains win?
Exactly. And, I will actually go on record and say that, one backstage issue with this movie is that all of the scenes that actually establish Malekith's character and shows motivation and development were cut out. Literally, Malekith is only there to say evil things, kill Thor's mother, and then die at the end of the movie. He is utterly forgettable and a complete waste of Christopher Eccleston's acting ability.
Yeah, and you basically touched on everything that I did. So let's talk about the positives, since that's a much shorter list.
So Loki, literally everything Tom Hiddleston touches in this movie is gold. Another backstage thing that I kind of have to bring up is that focus groups made a bunch of changes because of Loki. First one is literally 3 months before this movie came out, they did reshoots to add more Loki scenes in order to make the movie watchable. Also, Loki's death in this movie was initially going to be permanent.
Ooh.
Yeah, they reshot the end to have him come back because the focus groups were literally in denial that he was actually dead. Funny how that continued to be a thing later on. I can honestly say, though, that was for the best, because I remember coming out of this movie, the only thing that excited me was seeing what Loki was going to do next.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
and of course, every scene with Loki and his mother was brilliantly acted.
Yeah.
Loki's mother was wasted as just being here to get fridged.
Yeah.
It's just, everything Tom Hiddleston touches is gold. There's no other way to say that. And of course, it's funny to see the seeds being planted once again for Odin being a shitty king and father in basically every movie. Watching this is really not that surprising, all the revelations that happen about him in Ragnarok.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And then, of course, the Loki impersonating Cap scene, which is still to this day one of the funniest scenes in the MCU. And nobody ever talks about it because nobody ever rewatched this movie aside from our masochistic asses.
And there's this one thing that I liked was that Darcy does get one funny moment, but it's only because of the punchline that's delivered by Jane. It's the part where they meet all the British kids and Darcy says, "Don't worry, we're American," and Jane Foster says, "How is we're Americans supposed to get them to like us?"
Yeah. So, do you want to just skip to the rating? What else can we say about this movie?
That it's just exposition, the movie, and it really deserves its reputation. Bronze tier. Yeah, so, funny you say exposition, the movie. So, I said it's good that it's a standalone movie because it's perfectly skippable. So, list of things that are actually introduced in this movie. The concept of the Infinity Stones and the Aether being an Infinity Stone. The Collector.
Yeah, the Collector being there, and then, Loki replacing Odin. Everything that is explained or introduced in this movie is either re-explained, reintroduced, or retconned in a later movie.
Yes,
which is why it's completely skippable.
I have that in my notes too. It's we already had an explanation for how that freaking alignment of the words work. I think there are 2 different explanations, or 3 different explanations for that. One is given by Eric
Selvig.
Yeah, Eric Selvig's character, and the other one is given by Thor. We did not need another one.
Yeah, and then so the Collector shows up and gives the origin story of the Infinity Stones in Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, anything Thor related is explained pretty well in Ultron and Ragnarok. Yeah. Again, this movie is completely unnecessary, and it's no wonder this movie was enough to make Hemsworth consider quitting the role.
Okay, that I did not know.
Oh yeah, no, part of the reason why they got Taika Waititi to make Ragnarok and why it changed so much is that Hemsworth just wasn't having fun playing Thor anymore. He felt suffocated, which makes sense because,
Which even Anthony Hopkins would have felt like he was phoning it in this time around.
Tom Hiddleston is the only person in this movie who doesn't seem to be phoning it in. He's the only actor that I feel like actually wants to be in this movie.
Oh my god, that just reminded me. There were little hints of a love triangle between Sif, Thor, and Jane, weren't there?
Oh yeah.
Oh Jesus Christ.
Straight up. And I'm glad that they never went anywhere with that because I was going to say irrational hatred for love triangles, but I actually think that's probably pretty rational. Yeah. So, Winter Soldier.
Platinum, moving on.
No. We didn't just talk about Thor the Dark World for however long we were talking about it longer than it deserves. We're going to at least have some time to cleanse ourselves and talk about an actual fucking good movie.
Yes. Yeah.
So let me just... Literally my first note on this is finally some good fucking food.
And my final note on this was actually this is the movie that the platinum tier was made for.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So it's because it's iconic right from the beginning. Where the first line in the movie is on your left.
Yeah. So first of all, I appreciate so much that the opening scene actually uses the score from First Avenger, which I love so. You know how I love that.
Oh
score.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I think the best thing about... First of all, my favorite thing in the opening is Steve's list of things he's trying to watch.
Yes, and I actually wrote down what the items were.
Oh, yeah, well, I was going to say, there are different items on the list depending on what country the movie aired in, which is so cool. That they, went the extra mile to make it relatable for the... Like, they're like, right from the start, Sam and Cap's relationship works perfectly.
Right off the bat.
Once you... Even, like, underneath all the MCU quips that are happening in that scene, like, just the connection of two veterans who have experienced similar loss, like that's a connection that only people in that situation can have.
Yes, and it's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I will say that in this movie, this is probably the movie where I feel like it starts where like every character is a smartass, that whole MCU thing.
Yeah,
but in this movie, at least it works.
Oh yeah, definitely, because
it's not tired in this movie.
It's really not, because it just feels like banter between coworkers. Which come on, yeah,
and that's why I love Black Widow as a character in this more than any other movie. Is her relationship with Cap is they're just friends making fun of each other. Like this is probably one of my favorite movies because it's not even really just a superhero movie, it's just a good movie. All the characters feel like people.
Authentic. Authenticity is the name of the game.
Yeah.
So, and when did you realize you love this movie? Because for me, it was the "this isn't freedom, this is fear" scene.
I mean, honestly, the whole fight scene on the Lumerian Star, where Cap goes a full Arkham Knight on those motherfuckers. Like the moment Cap kicks a bitch off of the boat, he knows it's a very different movie in a really good way.
Very good way.
Like, first of all, like, that's the thing. Like, this is just... We've talked about this before. Like, this is in my top 5 action movies. This is one of the times where MCU succeeds in surpassing the superhero genre just to make a legitimately great film. And I think this is one of the few movies where, like, you know, despite the fact that the military was involved in making this movie, it actually succeeds in criticizing America and the military.
Yeah, exactly.
So much of what it says even still is relevant.
Yeah, remember, I have this, remember when Nazis infiltrated the government sounded was just a cheesy movie pitch?
Well, I mean, you say that, but even then, like, the whole thing with, you know, America recruiting Nazi scientists, that's still a thing that actually happened. And the movie still, like, kind of calls out that was a terrible idea. But yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking. Yeah. Like, remember when white supremacists infiltrating the government and, you know, corrupting it. And then, of course, Cap was like, no, we can't just reform S.H.I.E.L.D. You have to tear the whole thing down because it's corrupt. Gee, that doesn't sound familiar at all.
No, not at all. No,
yeah. ACAB.
But even then, it's thematically sound, and it's also, the presentation is strong as well. Because tell me that helicarrier scene, even though you knew how it was going to end, it's still a fucking nail biter.
Oh, it's that's the thing. Like, the action scenes are so well shot that it's just as tense no matter what.
God, yeah, this was my third time rewatching it, and I still
only third. This is probably the one I've rewatched the most times.
That's Ragnarok for me, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I think that so much just talking about great scenes.
Oh my god, yeah.
I mean, you know,
I love Fury's story about his granddad.
Oh, that's a great scene. You know, that scene apparently was based a little bit in reality. Like, Samuel L. Jackson's grandfather was an elevator operator.
I believe that. Yeah.
I mean, I love the museum scene where Cap goes and he's seeing, like, his life as a history lesson now. God, the scene where he goes to meet old Peggy is so hard to watch.
Look what I have written down here. For Peggy with Alzheimer's, and it's just screaming.
Yeah, no, like, it just fucking hurts to watch. Like, I love, you know, the questions of accountability for superheroes is already coming up in this scene, like, kind of planting the seeds for Civil War. Yeah. Okay, should we talk about Fury's last time I trusted someone I lost an eye line?
You mean the line that I think Captain Marvel ruined?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you said it.
Yeah,
it just makes Fury look... I mean, he is dramatic, but, like...
This is petty. Like, that's just... Yeah. That's just the... Like, this it's not the same thing that the guy who would lie about the bloodstained cards in First Avengers. Like,
right.
I trusted someone and they betrayed me. You mean a cat scratched your eye?
Yeah.
Okay, that's dramatic, like, even for you.
I mean, if we're... So... There are very few things in this movie that I disliked, and so I'm just gonna talk about them. I'm gonna go opposite and just talk about. First of all, Cap hiding the flash drive in the vending machine was dumb to me. I've never heard an explanation for that makes any sense to me. Yeah, and then the other thing, this isn't really a fault of the movie, but like Fury's air quotes death scene. I mean, that was one of those things where it's like, okay, I know he's not actually dead because he has lines in the trailer that haven't happened yet. So that kind of ruined that for me a little bit when I saw it in theaters. But it's not on to stuff I actually like. The fucking Winter Soldier. Oh my god. He is still the most terrifying villain, I think, in anything. He's like the goddamn Terminator.
He is. And my god, we were just talking about the score, the music during the highway fight scene.
Okay, the highway fight scene and the elevator fight scene are still two of the greatest fight scenes in anything ever.
Yeah, and the Bucky catching the Winter Soldier catching the shield is one of these.
Throwing him from behind.
Throwing him from behind is still one of the top 5 oh shit moments in the MCU.
Absolutely. Like that, and then like on the final helicarrier fight, Steve fighting him, begging him to remember him.
Yes.
We'll get to the end of the line, pal.
Yeah, the frickin' the movie went full Naruto and Sasuke though. Let's be real.
Cap and Steve is just Naruto and Bucky for white people.
Yeah, for real.
I literally Cap and Bucky is like Naruto and Sasuke. You know what I mean? I said the wrong names. You know what I mean, audience.
Yeah. Exactly.
Also, 2 genius things they did in this movie is retroactively making the stupid senator for Iron Man 2 Hydra. Like that just completely changes that scene in the best way possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And then also, like, so many people seem to forget that this is the movie where you find out that Bucky killed Tony Stark's parents.
Yeah. What scene was that again?
In the scene where Zola is explaining that Hydra's been around the whole time, when he's talking about accidents that they caused in order to shape history,
right.
They show the newspaper clipping of Howard Stark's death.
Howard Stark's death, yep.
Yeah. Like, that's the thing people realize is he really did know.
Yep.
Yeah, and then, like, honestly, just talking about I literally have in my notes, abolish S.H.I.E.L.D., don't reform it. Yeah, like, and then one thing that okay, you know how huge the balls are on Alexander Pierce, Robert Redford's character is?
Yes.
He literally slaps the Winter Soldier when he's not listening to him.
Yeah, Robert Redford, because he's Robert Redford.
He's Robert fucking Redford. He can do whatever he wants and get away with it.
Yes.
Yeah, no. Honestly, like, one scene that I think kind of reflects a lot of issues with in real life is like the Security Council is totally on board with Project Insight until they realize the Hydra was causing it. Then all of a sudden they're completely against it. Like that's the whole point I see is they only have a problem with it because they're not the ones in control with it. And that shows so much about how people have issues with the issues that people have with how they view power in real life.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's dangerous and horrible, but you were okay with it because it was your Switch, not his.
Yeah. Not if it was your Switch.
Yeah. Exactly. Like that's not an optimistic scene.
It's really not.
Yeah.
Until we get the reveal that Natasha was the female senator the whole time.
Yeah.
That was still amusing. Amusing is the word.
It's a great scene anyway. Yeah, and like, I mean, yeah. One thing that I will say, talking about tension, the first time I saw this movie, I legitimately thought that they were going to kill Falcon off when he was fighting Winter Soldier.
Really?
Well, here's the thing. I wasn't totally like clued in with like, oh yeah, he's going to be around for a lot of movies after this.
Right.
And literally my thing was like, oh, they better not kill off the black sidekick. Because I mean, that's a reasonable fear in any of these movies.
Yeah, and even in the movie proper, like that whole backstory that they give him with the whole
his friend died.
His friend died, and the fact that he's running the support group.
Yeah.
Yeah, all that backstory is just death flags left and right.
Yeah. I mean, not saying anything about the fact that Rhodey has somehow survived this whole time.
True.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what else is to say about this? Want to just talk about standalone versus...
versus... Oh my god, it works as both!
I say mostly it works along as standalone. The only thing I say is there's certain parts that don't receive an explanation. Like, they never actually talk about, like, Steve being in the ice. Like, it expects you to know who Steve is. It expects you to know who S.H.I.E.L.D. is. I mean... It expects you to already be a fan of these characters, but the movie still works pretty well on itself, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only thing is that the end leaves a lot of open threads to lead directly into Age of Ultron and Civil War.
Yes.
But I mean, talking about like overarching plot, I mean, this changes everything. Destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. and introducing Bucky and setting up Age of Ultron, like this literally changes the entire MCU within 5 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's literally so impactful, it changed the TV shows too. Like, I know you don't know this, but this show came out during Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s first season. So this movie happens in the middle of the first season, and all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. of afterwards is dealing with the fallout from this movie. Like, I remember people were freaking out to see the episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. came out after this, because there's a stretch of like 4 episodes in the middle of the season that's basically this movie from those characters' point of view. And like I don't think it cares about spoilers at this point, like almost 10 years later, but like one of the main characters in that show was Hydra, which is why it was such a huge deal when it happened in that show.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, like you said, it's platinum. It surpasses the superhero genre. It's just an amazing action movie. I mean, this movie, like I would say, if we were ranking within tiers, this is at the top of the platinum.
Top of the platinum. Strong platinum.
Yeah.
Strong platinum.
And fortunately, Phase 2 kept it strong because immediately after this, we got Guardians of the fucking Galaxy.
Oh my god, Guardians of the Galaxy. So I know nowadays all of the Guardians names are household names, but I don't think people remember just how much, like this was the ultimate test of how strong the Marvel
Disney was a huge test because they went with super obscure characters that really only hardcore comic fans knew or cared about. The trailers felt completely different from anything they had done up until this point. Like I remember after this movie, it was like, okay, like no matter what Marvel does after this, like I trust them because they took characters nobody knew or cared about and made them some of the most beloved household names in history of superheroes.
Yeah, and I think the way they did that was twofold. Well, one was like a service level thing, because I remember some of my older law school classmates at the time, they saw this movie, and what really had formed a connection with them was the 80s soundtrack. So that was one way that they would do it. And another way is that they wrote the movie as if no one else knew who they were either.
Like I will say the best character establishing moments I can think of is, the come and get your love scene and the Guardians all meeting each other by beating the shit out of each other, then ending up in jail.
And the prison break.
Yeah, I think that, and honestly, just James Gunn is such a creative genius. I honestly believe that. Like we could do a whole episode just talking about how he put the soundtracks for Guardians movies together, and like the character arcs that he created for these characters. Yeah. I mean, I still remember going to see this movie in theaters and that opening scene with Peter's mother dying.
Oh,
like, that's one of the earliest times I can remember everybody literally being like, did we walk into the wrong movie? Like, that was legit. And then, like, it goes, the mood whiplash into Come and Get Your Love is masterfully done. And it's just, I mean, every role is perfectly cast.
Yes.
I honestly think every single joke in this movie hits the mark.
I would say one exception.
Which one?
The Drax's green horror line. That's not.
I feel like that wasn't even really a joke. He just honestly still doesn't like Gamora at that point. Yeah, but
okay.
I don't know. But I mean, honestly, every single line basically became a meme.
Yeah, that's true. I need that guy's leg.
Yeah, nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it.
And then in this very same scene, I'm going to die with the biggest idiots in the universe.
Right? Look at, okay, the bunch of jackasses standing in a circle scene is still my favorite team up scene in anything.
Yeah, but to the point that jackasses in a circle scene that's your shorthand for those types of scenes.
Exactly. Like, they didn't invent the trope, but they sure as hell, perfected it in one scene.
Oh, God, yes. And one thing that I've heard a lot throughout people who like this movie is that it is kind of like Futurama. It's like Futurama.
No, I get that.
And I even have Gamora as Leela, Peter as Fry, Rocket as Bender, and Zoidberg is split between Drax and Groot.
That actually fits way too well.
I know, right? And oh my gosh, speaking of James Gunn's creative ideas, remember the scene where they're in the prison and there's that orange female alien who's looking at a projection of her family, and like she's only on screen for like 3 seconds and my chest hurt for her.
Absolutely. Especially watching the movie knowing that everybody in that jail dies by the end.
Yeah. Speaking of, what did you think about the villain?
Ronan?
Yeah,
I feel like that's like one of the biggest strike against the movie is that he's a very like one-dimensional.
Yeah, but when everyone else around him, I could give it a pass when everyone else around him is.
That was going to be what I was going to say, is that he doesn't need to be super over the top because he's not the focus of the movie. That's the thing about the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, they're very character driven. These movies exist to facilitate the character development of their characters. Like, the plot facilitates character development, not the other way around. And I think it's an important distinction to make.
Very important.
Yeah. I will say, though, that like talking about characters, people really don't talk enough about how fucked up the Collector is. He collects people.
And living things.
Yeah, and it's legit. Within 5 minutes of meeting Groot, he tries to get him to negotiate to sell him his corpse after he dies.
Yeah, and even before that, another short but effective scene that Your species have elbows, yes?
Oh, God. It's Benicio del Toro, like I said, perfectly cast.
Perfect.
Yeah, no.
Oh, man.
And I think that's the thing that makes the movie so good, is that as funny as they are, the emotional notes all hit perfectly the way they need to.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of broken people coming together to try and make each other better and save the world. If for no reason other than the fact that they happen to live in it.
One of the idiots. That's another line.
Yeah.
I'm one of the idiots who lives in it.
Yeah. And it's hilarious to me as well that, like, early on, when after Rocket explains Groot's speech thing to Quill, Quill's response is literally, yeah, that's gonna wear thin real fast.
It did not wear thin real fast.
Yeah, just Always Sunny thing. The gang milks that shit for all it's worth over the next 10 years.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly... The dance battle into the Guardians holding the stone together is legitimately my favorite sequence of scenes in the entire MCU.
Oh, it's your one favorite scene?
I mean, here's the thing. This is the movie that I would show someone to convince them that the MCU is worth watching.
Right, yeah. Yeah. That's a really... Yeah, now I'm thinking about it, it's a really great scene because it's thematic. It's like a good... It wraps a good little thematic bow on the entire movie.
It's a good sampler for the MCU.
Yeah.
Let's talk about things that introduced and immediately became household names. Yondu's one fight scene.
Yeah. Can we agree that if it weren't for the Infinity Gauntlet, his arrow would be the most powerful weapon in the entire...
I'm pretty sure that's a thing. It would be between him and Tony's suits, and I think it would be a narrow Yondu victory.
Yeah. And I think this is the first movie where Thanos speaks.
This is Thanos' first real appearance, yeah. Thanos' first real appearance and the first official appearance and explanation of the Infinity Stones.
Mm-hmm.
God, his scenes in this movie hit real different in a post-Endgame world.
Yeah, it really does.
I know we haven't gone to him proper yet, but let's just go ahead and say it. Do you think Marvel succeeded in making the next Darth Vader with Thanos?
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes,
I was legitimately getting first scene of A New Hope vibes from Thanos in this.
Yeah, exactly. And it starts before we even see him fully in full body, when Ronan snaps that guy's neck in front of him, and Thanos doesn't even acknowledge it.
Oh yeah, no, when Thanos is I obey the Star Wars in your blood. That line hits real different now.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's
hell post Infinity War world. That's just.
Yeah, so this movie it's a perfect standalone movie because it's literal worlds away from the rest of the MCU. Yeah, but aside from introducing Thanos and the Infinity Stones, it's not directly affecting anything else in the MCU, so it's perfectly in its own... I remember when talking about the Guardians crossing over with the Avengers was a wild fan theory.
Oh, really?
Oh, dude, people lost their shit when the Guardians showed up in the Infinity War trailer. People were hype.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, no,
Who the hell are you guys?
Yeah, it's good, so, yeah.
So, I do have one thing. So, I didn't put this in Platinum. Because there are a lot of exposition scenes that I felt kind of held it back a little bit. The most egregious example was Drax's introduction.
That's
because remember you remember how that went, right?
Yeah, he just shows up and explains that my family is dead and her father killed them.
Yeah, and there were other scenes like that with
there is, but the thing is I'm a lore junkie, so I enjoy those scenes.
Gotcha.
Well, here's the thing. I put my rating Platinum. Subtweet might actually be perfect. But
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. If I told you right now I think this movie's perfect, how much are you going to argue with me?
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's a strong gold for me.
That's fair.
Yeah,
I mean, like I said, gold for me is basically top tier. We created Platinum so that we could give Winter Soldier the recognition it deserves. Of course, there are other Platinum movies too, but I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I don't want to oversaturate it.
No,
but yeah.
Huh.
So
don't want to oversaturate while we're talking about the MCU.
Of course, that would be horrible,
right?
Okay, so now let's move on to what I think is the weakest of all the team-up movies.
Yeah.
Age of Ultron.
Yeah, so this movie is... Here's my thing with this movie. It has some of the best and some of my favorite moments and scenes. They're just tied together by a Frankenstein's monster of a plot that doesn't work. Actually, no, I take that back. Frankenstein's monster worked slightly better. This is a shambling mound of a plot.
Well, keep in mind, if we're talking about Frankenstein's monster, the book version is a lot different than the famous movie version. The book version could go on
this is the Hotel Transylvania Frankenstein.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So yeah, my first and biggest issue with the movie was this is where Joss Whedon's brand of everything brand of everything was starting to get tired and over and
I will say before we get into this, there were a lot of complaints that followed the MCU through Phase 2 that some of which were addressed in this movie, some of which weren't. The big one that followed in the Big Three's sequels going up to this was the sort of lack of continuity and connection. Like, I remember the biggest complaints were always, how are we still getting solo movie sequels when we've established that the Avengers are a thing? Like, the whole idea is, like, where was anybody when people thought Tony was dead in Iron Man 3? Why didn't anybody show up in London? And it's like, even in Captain America Winter Soldier, Hawkeye was supposed to show up, but Jeremy Renner's schedule didn't allow it. Hawkeye missing in that movie, I think, if he had been in that movie, that would have been huge for his character.
Right.
Yeah, no, but like, and so for them to all suddenly be together again in this movie, like, you just kind of have to take it for what it is.
Yeah.
And I will say that, so let's talk about the good things in this movie.
Okay.
Like, so, the best thing that this movie does is it shows the Avengers at their strongest.
Yes.
This movie. They're a well-oiled machine. They've been a well-oiled machine for a while, and they're a team. They're the Avengers. They know what they're about, and they're good at it.
Yes.
And we get to see them be people. Like, the party scene is, to this day, my favorite scene in the whole MCU, because we've said it before, I love it when the characters get to be people, and that's what this is. It's just them sitting around getting drunk, awkwardly flirting, and having fun. Like, all of them trying to lift the hammer is still my favorite scene in anything. I wish we'd gotten more scenes like that.
Yeah, honestly, but nope, we have to have a villain who's a carbon copy of Tony.
I mean, in this case, at least it's thematic and not just lazy screenwriting.
That's true.
I mean, there is lazy screenwriting, but it's also thematic.
Right. And hey, did your theater also gasp when Vision lifted Mjolnir?
Yes. Well, it was more like silent shock than anything. Okay, do you want to just talk about Vision for a little bit?
Yeah, let's talk about Vision.
It's hard to say that he's a big character in this movie because he's around for less than 30 minutes.
Right.
I mean, here's the thing with Vision. He's probably the most expressive plot device in these movies aside from Bucky.
I was going to say aside from Jade Foster, but...
I said expressive.
Fair.
Yeah, no. So I think I just remember after this movie came out, all anybody could talk about was like, so we all know Thanos is going to have to kill this guy to get the Mind Stone, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
This was very similar energy to a character in an anime realizing their child is a protagonist and looking at the calendar.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, you have that, and then just talking about things I like. I mean, I think the fight scenes are pretty on point throughout all of it, and I think that at the very least, they introduced Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and made them pretty likable right off the bat.
And we get our first mention of Wakanda.
Yep. And we get Andy Serkis just being a delight.
Yes. Which I'd completely forgotten that he lost his arm in this movie. So
that's the thing. Like, you talk about connective tissue in the MCU, like, this is the shit that people love them for. Like, when they actually foreshadow. Not like when they leave an Easter egg and look at it 10 years later, like, shit, we can legally do something with that now.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And speaking of Vision and Wanda, just a funny anecdote here. Remember that meme on Twitter where it was like, if you had $5 to build your...
I saw.
And then what was your response to that again?
A lot of people had similar responses. Like, my response is like Vision, Wanda, use the extra $12 to get Taco Bell takeout, while the two strongest Avengers handle everything else.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. We get introduced to the two strongest Avengers in this movie, and it's great.
One thing I will say I appreciated more now that we're actually rewatching the movies for this review is I used to always say Iron Man 3 is super skippable, but it really isn't, because if you watch this movie without the context of Tony's arc in Iron Man 3, it kind of seems like his PTSD is caused by Wanda. And it's not. He's already trying to build Ultron, so he has a level of paranoia, which he talks about later. But like the degree to how bad it is, like Iron Man 3, you need that foundation for his character actions in this to make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean, and like talking about things that we like in this movie, and it's hard to, because everything that you like in this movie is kind of tarnished by the way the movie also messes that thing up. Like, Hawkeye is great that they gave him a personality and a family. Yeah. But I mean, why did they only do it now?
I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah.
Like, they had since Thor to do this shit. So
exactly.
But nope, they decided to hypnotize him for half of Avengers.
And then, not have him in Winter Soldier.
But hey, we got that quip of, I've done the mind control thing before.
I mean, that was a little bit cathartic, but also kind of self-indulgent, considering the same guy wrote both of those.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Joss Whedon is exactly known for, acknowledging his mistakes, so I don't give him too much credit for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do we talk about the shit we have issues with now?
Oh, God.
So this is basically just like the world's worst knitting competition because there are loose threads everywhere.
Oh,
literally all this movie does is set up future movies. This movie is so busy setting up future movies and plot threads that it forgets to just be its own movie.
It's Civil War foreshadowing the movie.
Yeah, literally all this does is set up Ragnarok and set up Civil War, and it's just...
That's it.
That's all, and it spends so much time doing that, it doesn't have time to do anything else.
This could have been like an episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., honestly.
Basically.
Yeah, it didn't need to be a 2-hour movie, because what was in that 2 hours? Building Ultron?
Yeah, surprisingly little actually happens in this movie.
Yeah. And, but, hey, we got the Hulkbuster fight scene.
Hey, Hulkbuster fight scene.
Steals the entire movie.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, if we're going to talk about... I have to talk about what is I think, to this day, the biggest mistake in the history of the MCU.
Oh.
Killing off Quicksilver.
Really? Oh, yeah, elaborate on that.
I mean, Joss Whedon has acknowledged that he only did that because he's known for killing characters off. He's acknowledged that he killed him to meet a quota.
Jesus.
Yeah. Second of all, it's like, so much potential for Wanda's character is lost by having Pietro killed off. And it's like, it's not even like it really impacts her character because he's literally never mentioned again. She literally mourns Vision more than she mourns her own twin brother in these movies.
Yeah, it just kind of makes her line in Endgame hilarious, and that's that you took everything from me. Is like, you mean just Vision?
Yeah, like, what about your brother? Like, you took everything except what Ultron took from me. I mean, if we're counting her backstory with, her losing her parents to Stark Wars, you took everything that Ultron and Tony Stark didn't take from me, which admittedly wasn't much, but fuck you. It doesn't flow as well.
Yeah. Also, another thing one positive is Stan Lee's cameo in this one.
Oh, yeah, no, that was great.
Well, which is part of the party scene.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this was great because, well, here's the thing. He's such a fun character, but like he never really gets a character arc. They just kill him because, I don't know, they need to make Hawkeye feel bad.
And give his son his middle name.
Yeah, for some god. Man, that kid just has the unluckiest namesakes.
Albus Severus Potter says hi.
There needs to be like a support group for white kids with bad names.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, just one weird question. Is Friday Irish?
Oh, yeah, she's voiced by Jennifer Connelly.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, and another interesting thing is, can we agree that Cap snarks a little too much in this movie?
I've never liked the way Joss Whedon writes Cap.
Yeah.
He doesn't really understand the character. It's especially apparent when you watch this after watching Winter Soldier, which absolutely nails his personality. Like, the language scene just doesn't fit.
No, I think I could name an even worse example.
Yeah,
it's when they're in Sokovia and he interrupts that Ultron drone and he just angrily shouts, "Never what? You didn't finish!"
Yeah, the delivery for that line was weird, but it was also written weird.
Yeah,
that's the thing. This is the movie where like the whole everybody's a comedian thing really starts to feel tired.
Yeah, which we already touched on that. So, but another interesting thing was that you notice how there's a lot of emphasis on saving civilians in this time around. You know what other movie had come out around this time, right? Man of Steel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. That's my thing with the Marvel movies. Is in every single movie where there's been civilian casualties, like the reason there are civilian casualties is because the villain is intentionally attacking the civilian center, but the superhero's plan, it always revolves around protecting civilians. Like in Avengers, their whole thing is they're trying to fight while people are being evacuated.
Right.
Same thing with this movie.
Yeah.
Whereas Man of Steel, Superman is like, oh, what does this button do? Destroys an entire skyscraper. Hey guys, I won.
We did it, Patrick. We saved the city.
Basically.
All right, so
you're saying you didn't feel inspired and patriotic when Metropolis is literally a crater by the end of that movie?
No.
Me neither.
You know what else You know what else kind of made me cringe?
Huh?
The Scarlet Witch's "I'm a Monster" scene.
You mean Black Widow? But I want to talk about that line because here's the thing: a lot of people interpret that as saying she's a monster because she can't have kids. But here's what that line... Here's the thing. It's a shitty scene. It's a shitty line. I'm not defending it. I'm just saying what it actually means so that we can say that it sucks for the right reason.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, the reason why they... I don't know the word for the procedure, but the reason why they made her unable to have kids is to make it easier for her to kill people. And she says, and it worked. You think you're the only monster on the team? She's saying she's a monster because she acknowledges it's so easy for her to be an assassin.
Yeah, exactly. But because it came right after the scene where she mentioned she got an involuntary hysterectomy.
Yeah.
The the conflation is there. Like, I can understand the confusion, but yeah, it's just not the. It's a misinterpretation of the scene.
It's also kind of like a weird thing where like she can't have kids because she was like traumatized as a child, and Hulk can't have kids because he has terminal meat too big syndrome.
And that's another thing. There's freaking they reach so much. For
I'm sure the gamma radiation messed it up too, but I mean,
yeah, that too. But can we both agree that the Hulk and Black Widow romance was just they were reaching so much for that? Because like, wait, how can we make this believable despite the even though they made from that one scene where they made gaga eyes at each other. Even Joss Whedon's definition of gaga eyes at each other on in the first Avengers.
It's been long enough we can just acknowledge Joss Whedon doesn't understand human women.
Yeah, exactly. My first note here was that, of course, the only woman on the team is the only one who could calm Hulk.
Right.
Yay, 90s feminism. All right.
There was a second wave? God, it's bad.
But here's the thing, though. I really enjoyed the fun parts, though.
Oh, yeah, that's the thing. That's my thing. It's, that's why this movie isn't completely unwatchable, is because there are parts of it I legitimately enjoy.
Mm-hmm. The slow motion part that was in all the trailers of all of them fighting the drones.
Oh, yeah, the whole opening scene is pure fan service eye candy.
Yeah, it's a joy.
Yeah.
So, ultimately, I say silver. Yeah, silver tier.
It's not unwatchable enough to be bronze, but I mean, the good parts don't save the bad parts from existing.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I will say, though, this movie weirdly became a little bit better in hindsight now that Infinity War Endgame. Here's the thing. Once all this stuff it set up actually happened, this movie's a lot more enjoyable to watch because you could appreciate the setup knowing what the conclusion was.
Yes.
But at the time, we just kind of felt robbed that we spent 2 hours watching them set up movies that won't come out for another 5 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, at least we had that one gif of Cap ripping apart that log to tide us over.
I mean, yeah, no. That tides several people over for several reasons. Wide appeal, I believe, is the technical term for that.
Yep. Okay. And last but not least,
Ant-Man.
Ant-Man.
I will literally always go to bat for this. I remember this movie coming out, some people were like, oh, Ant-Man, that's so stupid. I'm like, fuck you, it's going to be amazing. Ant-Man has super cool powers. Paul Rudd's a great actor. Fuck you.
The little movie that could
pun.
Yeah.
Hey, here's the thing. After Guardians of the Galaxy, I don't feel nervous about most Marvel movies anymore.
Right.
The worst case scenario is it's watchable and unimpressive. Best case scenario is Guardians of the fucking Galaxy.
Yeah, exactly. And this one, as a matter of fact, because my God, Scott, right from the bat, we get the excellent, we get an exposition scene that isn't clunky.
Because it's actually funny.
Because it's actually funny, yeah.
It's like friends talking. It's like, okay, so here's the thing with this movie. It's just this great family comedy. But, like, because it's a family comedy, the jokes are funny without, reaching too much.
Exactly.
Like, the edgiest joke is Louis saying that his dad got deported.
Yeah, that's it.
And, I mean, it's still funny because Michael Pena's shockingly funny.
Yeah, he is incredibly funny.
Honestly, I wouldn't be disappointed if he, just stuck to comedies from now on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, Louis, obviously a fan favorite. Scott, I think the thing that makes him such a great character is that his motivations are so easy to understand. He's not trying to save the world or anything. He just wants to be a good dad, and he wants his daughter to like him.
Yep, small stakes. It's what honestly, these movies are better when the stakes are small like this.
Yeah, it's and it's a really fun heist movie. Like, if you like heist movies, this is the movie for you because it takes everything that's great about it and just kind of adds a superhero flavor to it.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, and I love what I have here is Scott. I think he has the best character intro outside of Cap.
I agree.
Yeah, because he's in the prison, and just from his small fight scene in the prison, like we communicates so much with so little because he takes his first hit like a man, and then he quickly deceives that guy into landing a hit.
Yeah,
and then of course they hug it out and then leave. And I love the plant and payoff of Michael Pena's line where he said, I'm so far the only guy to knock him out. And then he backs it up in the later scene where he knocks out everyone he gets into a fight with in one hit. It's amazing. I love it. I love it.
All the characters great in this. Like, Michael Douglas as Hank Pym is ungodly levels of perfect casting.
Yes. Oh my gosh. He is like, I was a long time fan of Michael Douglas ever since Basic Instinct, but when I was way too young to be watching that movie.
I was about to say, that movie, you weren't that old when that movie came out.
I really was. I watched it on VHS at least.
Okay,
but he took the role seriously, and he absolutely hit it out of the park, playing the overprotective father, but you kind of see where he's coming from, though.
Oh, yeah, totally understand. I think the whole, like, angle of having a classic superhero, you know, having already gone through their career and now being, like, bringing in the new guard, such a creative use for his character, but I really think that's, like, a great direction to take Hank Pym. Like, I feel like they did the character justice.
Very, very much so. Well, I don't know. I'm not really familiar with how his character is, quote unquote, supposed to be, but
I'd say, given how his character has been written in the past, this is one of the better representations of what he should be like.
Gotcha. Okay.
My only complaint is I wish this movie had been made sooner, so that we could have gotten this version of Hank Pym making Ultron instead of Tony Stark.
Ooh, that would have been, that's a good.
I will say that, like, you know, representation of mental illness in comics hasn't always been stellar, so I understand why I didn't go this route. I would have been really interested to see how they would have handled it if they had this version of Hank Pym also have schizophrenia. Especially since it would have been interesting to see if they, like, actually tried to make it actual schizophrenia and not comic book schizophrenia, which is just really multiple personality disorder.
Right. Okay. But I think they reserved all of that for the villain in this movie.
Yeah, no. Which, I mean, I'll say I feel like the villain's really one of the only weak parts, because he's just a straight up comic book villain with no redeemable qualities.
See, here's the thing, though. I think it fixed Iron. I'd rather they do that, because they introduced him as like a mustache twirler from the beginning, unlike an Iron Man, where he's conniving and manipulative, but then at the end he turns into friggin' King Kong, busting everything up.
I dislike that this is not a movie where it's just the villain is just an evil version of the protagonist power set-wise.
Yeah.
Also, is probably one of the most brutal kills in anything.
Are you talking about the scene in the bathroom?
Yes.
Oh, God.
That's like nightmare fuel.
Yeah, like...
Honestly, like, backtracking a little bit, this and Dark World has some of the most brutal kills. Like, those
grenades...
Those black hole grenades are fucked up. That's legitimate body horror.
Yeah, it is. Which, incidentally enough, is the same way that the Yellow Jacket bites it in this movie.
Yeah.
Huh.
Is Marvel okay?
I don't know.
Questions for later. Anyway, okay, so just talking about... I feel like this is one of the movies where you can't even really talk about the plot. You have to talk about the characters, because that's a draw. So, like, we talk about Hank and Scott and Louis. Let's talk about the women in this movie who... Really, this is one of the few movies where, like, it has a decently sized female cast and they all do well.
Yes.
Like, yeah... First of all, let's talk about the family dynamics in this movie. Like, you have Scott's ex-wife and her new husband.
Yes.
And his daughter. Like, the one thing I love about this is that there's not really any, like, vitriol between the exes or, like, the new husband. Like, both, you know, I don't remember a character's name. I'm bad at that. But, like, Scott's ex-wife and her new husband, they're supportive of Scott. They want him to get his shit together so he can see his daughter.
Right, exactly.
Like, they don't hate each other.
Yeah. I interned at a divorce firm for 3 months. The kind of situation between Scott and his ex-wife is what we call a relief.
Yeah, no. And then, of course, his daughter is, like, we just talked about Iron Man 3. That's how you do a child character. She is absolutely perfect. Like, that's an amazing child actor.
Adorable.
Yeah. Another reason I disliked part of Endgame. We'll get to that later.
Gotcha.
But that's fair. Like, she just... And it's no wonder Scott wants to be such a great dad. Yeah. And, of course, you have Hope Van Dyne.
Oh my God! Like, what a character arc in this movie.
I mean, the crazy thing about her character is that she's not even in the comics.
Really?
Yeah, no, she's basically an MCU exclusive.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
And, like,
interesting.
After the shit Evangeline Lilly got handed in the Hobbit movies, I'm glad she got to play this character here.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
I will say, Hope and Scott are, like, one of the few couples in the MCU that I think actually works.
Yeah. But let's see. There's that one. I think. Would you say? Yeah, Tony and Pepper.
Tony and Pepper, definitely. I'd say because they're dysfunctional in a very realistic but still wholesome way.
Yeah, exactly.
Steve and Peggy.
Yes. Yeah.
Honestly, Steve and his whole supporting cast, he's very homoerotic.
Yeah. But we stand a Pan King.
I mean, sure. Honestly.
Okay, but going to the family dynamics.
Thor and his hammer.
Thor. Are you done?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, speaking of, but another character, Anthony.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's literally perfect. Yeah.
Because it's so in line with his character, because he forms a bond with a friggin' ant and then names him and...
Yeah, a pun.
Yeah, with a dad joke.
Yeah.
A dad joke.
And of course, like, his whole, like, his other ex-con friends are all hilarious in their own way.
Oh, my Lord, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
It's weird. They're comic relief characters in a comedy movie, but like they still definitely fill that niche, even though it's not that,
Because Lewis's stories have become iconic at this point.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. Which one comedy scene that I wish got more traction was the just back it up.
Oh,
because how long the camera...
That's like a good example of a scene where you drag it out so long it actually becomes funnier.
It comes full circle. Yeah, take notes, Seth MacFarlane. Jeez.
Right? For someone who's known for doing that type of joke, you'd think he'd actually be good at it by now. Yeah.
But we talked about how the villain was a mustache twirler, but he was... Tell me you didn't... another oh shit moment in the MCU was the part where the plan didn't work.
Oh yeah, no, that's the thing. He's a good villain. It's just that here's the thing. I can appreciate a villain that's literally just 100% a bastard and like doesn't have a sympathetic backstory or anything.
The Jeff Bezos looking motherfucker.
Right? Like I can appreciate that in a movie. I'm just saying, there's not really anything necessarily special about him.
Which, yeah, they're
but he doesn't need to be because it's a small stakes movie. He's not the focus.
Small stakes.
You said that first.
I did. And even you mentioned how the final villain fight was just a fight between the evil version of the hero, but my god,
the set pieces were amazing. Like that's my favorite thing with the Ant-Man movies is how creatively they use his powers.
Yes, exactly. Like especially the part where he's surfing through the water main on top of the
fire ants.
The fire ants, I think. Yeah.
Or freaking Tomic, the giant Thomas the Tank Engine.
Oh man.
Or like when they see the giant ant right in the house from the cops, just like, that's a weird ass dog.
Oh my god! Oh, the mentioning that it mentioned that his ex's husband is currently a cop. This movie has a lot. Actually, it's a very scathing critique of the American prison system.
You think?
Oh my god!
I mean, the whistleblower ends up in jail.
The whistleblower ends up in jail, and he can't find a job to support his family. He's forced to go back in.
Literally, his line, the whole scene where he's like, "I have a master's degree in electrical engineering. I'll be fine. Hi, welcome to Baskin Robbins. I can get you." Like that's shockingly realistic.
Yeah, just how hard it is for ex-cons to rehabilitate, even though he genuinely wants to.
Yeah. It's like, my days of breaking into places and stealing shit are over. What do you want me to do? I want you to break into a place and steal some shit. Right. Makes sense. And I like that the movie kind of leans into how ridiculous the concept is in order to make it work. Which again, since phase one, that's the thing I love about the MCU. It doesn't try to be unnecessarily grounded. It knows what it is, and it just fucking goes for it.
Yes, exactly. And then let's talk about a standalone versus big picture. This is we're introduced to the quantum realm.
Yeah, here's the thing. Initially, it seems really standalone, but like stuff becomes more important later.
Right.
It does a good job of it's a good example of a movie that's aware it takes place in the MCU, but isn't necessarily trying to be a part of it, if that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah,
because the biggest thing it does to set up is the mid-credit scene literally being a scene from Civil War.
Yes.
Which generated a lot of hype and speculation at the time.
Oh my god, yeah.
That was insane.
Which is good because and then there was that scene in the middle where he beats Falcon.
Oh yeah. Oh my god, Falcon being in this was so great. No, here's the thing with that, though. I'm so glad I was at this point that I didn't watch trailers anymore. Because they showed that in one of the trailers like the week after the movie came out.
They did.
I know, I'm so glad I missed that because that was such a great scene.
Oh, yeah.
Especially seeing him just fanboy over Falcon, of all people. Guys, it's the Falcon. Hi, I'm Scott. Did he just say, hi, I'm Scott?
God. It's like, yeah, don't worry. No, even before that, I was like, don't worry, he can't see me. I can see you. Oh.
Oh, and then the tease in the mid-credits with Hope getting to be the Wasp in the next movie.
And hell, even before that, Louise's final story where she mentions, I need a guy who shrinks. Well, it's like, well, we got a guy who could jump, swing, and climb up walls.
Right.
Which, again, generated a shit ton of hype.
Which is funny, because they put that line in there without knowing if they would get the right Spider-Man back or not. That was meant to be...
Which was very ballsy.
Yeah, it was meant to be, like,
apparently,
vague.
It wasn't, it wasn't... Like they got their ego inflated after Guardians. Like that was a really ballsy. Which glad that it paid off, but still.
Yeah. You know, right. So
Gold. Yeah. Which is weird because I fully this is why I need to rewatch these movies because I thought based on my memories this was silver. But
yeah, here's the thing. Like this is also probably one of the most subjective of Marvel movies. Like but I love it. It's basically the kind of movie I could rewatch over and over and over again.
Yes, because it's a great heist comedy superhero movie.
It's a family comedy, which I can't overstate enough how important that is.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah,
we needed some family comedy after the fucking hide the zucchini joke in Age of Ultron. still can't believe they made that joke and got away with it. Yeah. Yeah, that's phase 2.
What do we have to look forward to in phase 3 again?
Dude, we start off with Civil War.
Shit!
Yeah, no. The hype was real.
But more on that next time.
Yeah, it's going to be a while before we do this again, because if I didn't have superhero fatigue before this review season, I will at the end of this. Same
here. Yeah, same here.
Yeah, we have to take a break before I just give everything bronze to get this shit over with.
Exactly.
And to be clear, I love superhero movies, but
yeah, we both
I love ice cream. I wouldn't eat ice cream for every fucking meal.
Right, exactly.
Well, I would just regret it later, like what I'm doing now.
So yeah,
the point is we have no self-control.
Exactly. Yeah. So for our next episode, it'll be something a little different. I don't want to jump the gun here, like how we just discussed Marvel doing with Spider-Man here, but it'll be something that we think you'll enjoy.
We're gonna review the DCE universe.
Hey, what the?